Hello everyone, welcome to another Top 5 Friday, and we're going to be talking about TV shows that the last season just kind of ruined it, and it was just a horrible last season. It almost ruined the show completely, sometimes.
Oh, it's Friday night. Don't know what I'm gonna do tonight. I could sit here and pick my nose while I watch a brand new video. Whoa, Top 5 Friday. Top 5 Friday tonight.
All right, number 5 is V. Now, this one's kind of iffy whether or not I should really put it on this list because there was only one series or season of V. However, I kind of am counting it because there was the miniseries, the original 2 episodes, and that's a masterpiece. V: The Final Battle, which came out the following year, was another miniseries of 3 episodes, and it was pretty good. There are some things about it that are just kind of really stupid. And I should probably do a top 5 Friday of that, actually, just in and of itself. But overall, it was good, just definitely not as good as the miniseries. Now, when the series came out the next year, which was like a regular TV series of 20 to 22 episodes, it was not good at all. Obviously, on this entire video, there's going to be spoilers on all the stuff that I'm talking about and spoiler warning on now's your chance. But when the visitors come back, it kind of negates everything that happened in the original miniseries, or in V: The Final Battle, I should say. If they wanted to do a series, they probably should have just picked it up right after the original miniseries and just did away with V: The Final Battle altogether. But after V: The Final Battle, they fight off the aliens, they go, and then they just come right back in the series, and it's kind of like, okay, that victory, the V for victory that happened in the final battle just kind of loses its luster a little bit. It's just like, meh. That always bothered me, and just the episodes themselves, the reuse of stock footage was just staggering. So the budget was ass. And not only that, just some of the episodes in general were just so cheesy and just ludicrous. I mean, we're talking about reptilian aliens with human faces, so how can I really be a judge of ludicrousy? But some of these episodes were ludicrous. They just were. And it really irritated me. But overall, just the series in a whole, while there were some cool moments every once in a while, I don't know, I think it could have been so much better, but it just, they even have actors leaving throughout the series. Now, I don't know if that's because they were written off and killed off because it was more realistic, or they were just like, I don't want to be a part of this anymore, I'm gone, so they had to write them off. I don't know, but either way, the execution of the series just wasn't there. It ended up getting canceled before the last episode was even shot. So what does that tell you? Number 4 is the X-Files. Other than our show, the X-Files was probably the show that was the best example of quitting while you're ahead and not extending yourself too long and going on too long to the point where it just kind of fizzles out. And that's what it did. It really kind of fizzled out for me. And the X-Files was, I loved that show. Me and Chris would watch that at my grandfather's house. I think it came on like Friday night for a while. I don't know if the entire series came on Friday nights, but for a while there, it was coming on Friday night, and we would sit down and watch it and get creeped out over aliens and stuff. And it was such a great show. I'll find me one person that doesn't like the X-Files. It was, in its heyday, probably the best paranormal show out there. And then it just kind of fizzled out. I guess they figured that they wanted to keep the ball rolling once Duchovny left. And it was probably a bad decision. Now, I like the T-1000. I think he's awesome. But the whole dynamic of those last few seasons, and especially the 10th season, just didn't do much for me, and I lost interest with the show. All right, so this is a major spoiler warning because I'm talking about a modern show, and if you haven't seen it, then you probably want to click off this video, but Game of Thrones. I don't watch a lot of modern stuff. I don't watch a lot of TV just in general these days. I watch reruns of the Jeffersons before I watch most modern stuff. But Game of Thrones is one of them. And I couldn't wait for the 8th season to come along, this last season. And it's been bad. There were things in it that just didn't make any sense to me. Like, why is Arya killing the Night King? That should have been Jon Snow. This is a great example of subverting expectations to a fault. Okay, sometimes, you know, in narratives, it's fine to subvert expectations and keep the audience guessing. However, I think that sometimes when you do that, you can, if you're doing it for the sake of doing it, you can ruin a lot of things. And I think that's what they were doing here. They just wanted somebody unexpected to kill the Night King for whatever reason, when Jon's arc this whole time has been set up to kill the Night King. So it's like, if you want to subvert expectations, do it somewhere else where it's not such a major story arc that's been over the last, well, the whole damn show. If you want Arya to kill somebody, have her kill Cersei. That just makes the most sense. She was on her hit list. She's been trained to becoming a trained assassin essentially throughout her arc. So it just makes sense that she would assassinate somebody at the end. But it makes more sense that it would be Cersei, not the Night King. And they even said, well, we just had her kill the Night King because it was kind of unexpected. It just didn't, it just seemed natural that it should be Jon. And it just didn't feel right for us. It felt natural for it to be Jon because that was his arc through the whole damn show, to confront the Night King. It was so underwhelming. It pissed me off. And then this last episode, the way Cersei gets taken out, it's ridiculous. Rocks falling on her. That's how this evil bad that we've been building up to, that's how she gets taken out. It's by freaking rocks. Are you kidding me? I don't know. Sometimes I think in the last season of a show, you have certain expectations, and maybe if things don't go the way you think they should go, then it's a disappointment in your eyes. But no. This should not have gone the way it's gone. All right, I would say that number 2 here is my favorite show growing up as a kid in the late 80s, and that's Airwolf. I was always into aircraft, jets, helicopters, all that stuff, and this show, I was immediately drawn to it. This amazing attack helicopter can solve anything from geopolitical incidences to some kind of local redneck being an a-hole. I mean, any problem that you can think of can be solved by this attack helicopter. It was such an amazing show. Sure, it had its flaws, and sometimes that was a little over the top and cheesy. Nah, it wasn't. It was a perfect show. Just don't. It was great. And the theme song, my God, the theme song, I would put it as the best theme song, even above Knight Rider. Went on for 3 seasons with the original cast, but then. What ended up happening was, as far as I know, they were going to cancel it. So another network picked it up.
I'm Jan Michael Vincent. Keep watching Airwolf on USA, because in January, something very special will happen.
Airwolf, a new chapter begins, January 23rd.
They picked it up, they filmed it in Canada, and they slashed the budget. And I don't know if it was by choice or by they didn't have enough to pay him, but all the original cast got killed off, and they brought in these new assholes, and they didn't hold a candle to the original cast. They sucked. Fellow Hawk, Jan Michael Vincent, Ernest Borgnine, Caitlin, they were all just so freaking fun to watch and cool. And it's cool in my eyes as a kid. And they just die off. I just wish they had just abruptly ended it at the end of the 3rd season, left me to wonder what ended up happening to Stringfellow Hawk and Dominic and the helicopter. Now I know they get killed for no good reason. And it irritated me. It was worse for me seeing Stringfellow. I mean, he died off camera, sure, but seeing Dominic die and knowing these characters were dead, it was worse to me than the Transformers. It was worse to me than Optimus Prime. It really, really was. And it sucked. And I got about 4 or 5 episodes into the 4th season. I tried to give it a chance, but it just was not happening for me. So I stopped watching, lost interest. They ruined it. And it was one of those things where now I go back and watch the first few seasons. I'm like, well, these people die in a horrible, horrible way for no really good reason. So it kind of ruins it, but it kind of does it because, Airwolf is still awesome. Okay, number 1 is going to be pretty obscure. A lot of you have probably never heard of it, but I'm glad because I finally get to talk about it, and that's War of the Worlds. So War of the Worlds was a TV series adapted as a kind of a sequel to the original 1953 War of the Worlds movie, which, by the way, happens to be one of my favorite movies of all time. I watched this movie so many times as a kid. So many, I can't even name it. I remember being at the mall one time, my grandmother said, "Hey, do you know War of the Worlds?" It was like a Saturday afternoon. "Do you know War of the Worlds is coming on at 3? We gotta get home." I'm like, gotta get home! Gotta get home and watch that movie. And we got home and we watched that movie. I could not believe it. So whenever I started seeing previews about this new TV show based on that, and seeing they had the ships, and I was like, that's probably the first time I ever actually crapped my pants as a kid. Actual crap came out. I went rocketing through the bedroom and the living room, knocking over vases and stuff. No, I'm just kidding. We didn't have vases. But I just could not believe that they were making a show of this. And it was good. I mean, you think it would be horrible, but it was really super violent. And I think, I'm not 100% sure about this, but I think they got in trouble because of how violent it was, and maybe had something to do with like adapting TV ratings. I mean, and maybe I'm wrong about that. I'd like to talk more about this. I could talk an hour about this particular show. I really, really could. Maybe I should one day, because there are so many things that just make me scratch my head about it, but it was still amazing. They were going it had a certain feel, had a certain direction to it, and all of a sudden, and to this day, I still don't understand why. And I don't think a lot of people do understand why. But they decided to renew it for a second season, but go in a completely different direction. And when I say completely different direction, I mean to the point where nothing makes any sense anymore. And things in the second season contradict things in the first season. Okay, if you want to go a different direction with something, and I believe that the person in charge of that was Frank Mancuso Jr. So he waltzes in like, "Oh, here we go. I want to put my spin on this show. I'm going to turn it from a modern sci-fi horror show to more of a cyber techno punk futuristic dystopian show." Out of nowhere. It didn't make any sense whatsoever at all. Some of the characters were killed, but some of the personalities of the characters changed completely. They were different people. The settings were different. The aliens themselves were different. They took the old aliens, killed them off, and there was these new aliens, and nothing was explained whatsoever. Look, if you're going to do something this drastic and just overhaul the show completely, I don't like it, but at least explain it. And it was never explained. You're just supposed to accept it and I guess not ask questions of why this race of aliens who's supposed to be the same aliens, but they're not the same aliens. They're using completely different technology, but they're still supposed to be the same aliens. And they look different, and they don't have anything, and they're called different. Then in the first season they were called the Mortax, and in the second season they were the Mothrin. Like, was that a mistake, or did they just decide to change it because? And the episodes themselves in the second season were just, they didn't hold a candle to the ones in the first season. The first season episodes were just so great. I mean, I think a lot of the ones that they did in that first were done pretty well. And the second season just came in and shat all over it. And it didn't even have the decency to wipe afterwards. I couldn't wait for the second season to come back, and I sat in front of my television, and I was looking at it, and there was a completely different opening sequence, completely different, and I was like, okay, I didn't even realize I was watching the right show. I thought it was a completely different show, and then they showed the logo, which was a different logo for the show, but it said War of the Worlds, and I'm like, what's going on here? And then Iron Horse dies, then Norton dies, and they introduce freaking Highlander, and I'm like, I was going through withdrawal. Like, I couldn't understand what was happening. I was having horrible flashbacks of Airwolf. Like, they just ruined my show. That was my show. They took away the Earth with a hand going over it. That was freaking awesome. Apparently the hands don't exist anymore because those aliens don't exist anymore because, look, I even have a magazine right here. Loved it. Loved this show. I still love it. I watch it probably once a year. I pop the DVDs in to watch it. Look at that hand over the Earth. That's freaking awesome. Awesome. And they don't have it anymore. Like, second season was like, who are those guys? Like they didn't even exist. Anyway, I always wanted to rant about that, and I've never had a reason to. But maybe down the road in the future, I can go into more depth and really sit down, collect my thoughts, and not have an aneurysm while thinking about it. Thank you so much for watching.